So, Sammy Guevara and Impact Wrestling. Now, this one's a really fascinating story, isn't it? Because this was something that came up a couple of months ago regarding Sammy Guevara during the period of time where he had left the inner circle on AEW Dynamite television. He was slated as part of this working relationship between All Elite Wrestling and Impact Wrestling. He was slated to work some tapings for Impact Wrestling. He was slated to come in, work a few matches, and it never happened. Now, at the time, there were so many conflicting stories as to what happened or what really didn't happen those Impact Wrestling tapings. There was rumors that he was going to come in, work tag team matches, but he was going to lose one of these tag team matches, and then he was rumored to be coming out one day, and he didn't come out till right before the TV tapings, and he wanted to have different plans than the plans that were originally slated for him. These plans were made by Chris Jericho and Don Callis, and it made them look bad. AEW weren't happy. There were rumors as well that Sammy Guevara had pitched to win the X Division Championship, bring the X Division title to AEW, but then never drop the title, just vacate it and give it back. There were so many confusing elements and really hearsay and just confusing and conflicting reports as to what happened about this, and it was certainly interesting at the time. Now, Sammy Guevara recently did an interview and he spoke about this. So as I mentioned, Sammy Guevara, he was slated to work with Impact Wrestling as part of the company's partnership or working relationship with AEW. Now, this was supposed, as I mentioned, to come during a period of time where Guevara had quit the inner circle, but instead he just stayed off of television for a few weeks instead. Now, Impact Wrestling had a plan for Sammy Guevara, but it was reported that the Spanish God had considered and suggested something else to Impact Wrestling officials. Now, others who knew the plan didn't blame Sammy for waiting to go in a different direction. In the end, Impact Wrestling just told Guevara, you know what, don't show up to the tapings despite the fact that he had actually already caught a flight and showed up in Nashville for them. But by the time he landed, the Impact Wrestling official said, you know what, it's not working out, just go back to Jacksonville or wherever you're from. I think he's from Texas. And just we'll go in a different direction. Now, as I mentioned, Sammy Guevara, of course, Blood and Guts, the AEW Dynamite special is this coming Wednesday. So he's been doing a lot of media. And Sammy Guevara had an interview with Fightful, Sean Rossap of the Fightful over there. And Guevara was asked about the situation and he opened up about it. And it's something that I did want to talk about. As I mentioned, there were plenty of stories coming out about what happened or didn't happen. But the Spanish God said that they all came from one side. He didn't want that business out there, but it is what it is. This is the quote that he had to say, quote, "It's business at the end of the day. What was presented, I didn't see it working for me. I still wish nothing but the best for Impact and everybody there. I didn't put no information out online, and I know there's only a certain amount of people that know certain information. So the information that was put online is only coming from one side. I wish we could have kept it more close-knit instead of having to make it everybody's business, but I feel like it wasn't necessary for everybody to know any of this stuff, so that's why I started trolling on the vlog, and certain things are coming out where I'm like, yo, this is not true at all, so don't believe everything you read online." I think it's interesting he's saying that to a wrestling website. Nevertheless, he carries on and says, "But hey, man, it is what it is. We all could have handled things better, but that's life in general, man. You live, you learn, you grow, and you go. I have a lot of friends over there too, like Trey Miguel, Ace Austin, and there's plenty of dudes over there that I'd love to wrestle. I've wrestled before on Independence, like we were all on similar shows together not very long ago. So it's either going to happen over there in Impact, it's going to happen here in AEW, or it's going to happen at some random show somewhere. We're all going to wrestle each other." Now, that to me sounds like that any chance of Sammy Guevara working once again with Impact Wrestling in the future doesn't really look like that is going to happen now, I would say. It's interesting. It's interesting, what he said there. And the reason I say it's interesting, because he could very easily, right? He could very, very easily come out and just say, it's all not true and that didn't happen and all that kind of stuff. I think his reaction to all of that, to be honest, is very telling. And I don't mean this as any disrespect to Sammy Guevara at all. I'm a big fan of his work. But he could have easily come out there. If it wasn't true, he could have come out and said, "That was all not true, it was rubbish." He's come out and said, well, it's from one perspective. And he admitted part of the story there that was going out, and the more widely accepted story as to what happened when it came to Impact and Sammy Guevara is that Impact had plans for him. Those plans were sorted out by Don Callis and Chris Jericho. They're the ones that had come up with that and had come up with the crossover element of what was going on Dynamite and what was going to happen on Impact. They presented that to Sammy Guevara. That was what was agreed was going to happen. Sammy Guevara didn't like it. He still traveled, but he started pitching his own stuff. And he kind of confirms it. He kind of confirms it in this statement. He said, quote, "What was presented, I didn't see it working for me." He said it. And I don't know if he doesn't go into saying about the winning the X Division title and dropping it and vacating it and not dropping it or putting anyone over. That stuff, obviously, he doesn't acknowledge. And maybe that's the part where he's saying, oh, it's only coming from one point of view. But to be honest, and again, I understand that at the end of the day, when you're a pro wrestler, you're an independent contractor and you have to do what's best for yourself. I get it. And I understand you have to protect your character and you have to protect your integrity, especially in someone like Sammy Guevara. He realizes that his bread and butter is AEW and what's going on Dynamite. He doesn't want to go to a smaller promotion and do a crappy gimmick that makes him look bad on AEW television or hurts his perspective in front of the eyes of AEW fans or Tony Khan or whatever. But really, my opinion hasn't changed that much. The more I think about it, my opinion hasn't changed that much on this story to when it was first reported a few months ago, and that it's really just, get over it. To be honest, it's kind of just get over it. If you're asked by AEW as part of a working relationship, look, we've got this deal with Impact Wrestling, we want you to do this thing, go over there, work the tapings. And if you lose a match or you're part of a tag team in the situation and you lose the match, whatever, you can chalk it up to the storyline. You can say, the reason I lost the match and my performance was so bad is because I was so distracted. I'd left the inner circle and I did have my mentor, Chris Jericho, looking for me. I was lost in the wilderness and I had to come back, and it all ties into the MJF and the Pinnacle storyline. You can make it work. If you're asked to do that as part of the relationship between AEW and Impact Wrestling, you do it. You do it. And again, in this quote, I find it interesting because it says to me there are certainly elements of truth to these reports that are coming out or came out several months ago about this situation, because the report was that it was pitched to him that this would happen at the Impact taping. He didn't like it. He traveled. The entire time that he was traveling, he was pitching other ideas or trying to come up with other ideas, and he didn't show up until the day of the taping, and then Impact Wrestling sent him home. He confirms it pretty much out there. And he's saying, well, I didn't put any information online because it's nobody's business and all that kind of stuff. But in the same way that he was trying to protect himself from allegedly a bad bit of creative from Impact Wrestling and AEW, surely it would be within his best interest to protect himself from being deemed as difficult to work with or turning down this creative or trying to come up with other stuff, right? Isn't that the right thing? So I find it, I always think in these kind of situations, if you've got nothing to hide, you won't hide anything, right? And if it was completely fabricated and it wasn't true, he would come out and say, no, this is actually what happened. And again, he doesn't do that. He doesn't do that in his situation. He comes out and says, I didn't like what was presented to me, and then says, but the other stuff comes from one point of view. Well, from the point of view you're saying that you didn't like what was presented to you, that's the point of view that's being reported. So I don't know. I find that very odd, and I find it very, very interesting to what he said in that interview. I really do, because he kind of, whilst denying certain elements of it, he confirms other parts of it. So it's interesting. It's just very apparent, I think, that he's not going to be working with Impact Wrestling in the future. He's not going to be part of that working relationship, and that's a shame. That's a shame, because, like he said, there's people like Trey Miguel, Ace Austin, Josh Alexander. There's plenty of guys in Impact that I think a lot of people would like to see Sammy Guevara work with and against, but it's not going to happen because of that situation. And obviously the feeling at the time, and this obviously is since found out that it didn't hurt the relationship between Impact and AEW, but there was a bit of a concern at the time, particularly from those in AEW, that they might have hurt this relationship with Impact Wrestling because of one of their talents coming in and kind of big leaguing them and saying, no, I'm not going to do that. I want to do this. I want to do that. And then Nick Aldis came out at the time and kind of stoked the flames for that and said that he'd heard from Impact people that the AEW talent had come in and been a bit disrespectful or had a big ego. And I don't know if that's gone away. I don't know if that was addressed. I don't know. I just found his response here, Sammy Guevara, in this interview just very, very telling. And I think it says quite a lot. Another Impact story I did want to talk about was Big Cass, W. Morrissey, because there's been an update when it comes to W. Morrissey, how long he's expected to be in Impact Wrestling for and what his deal is like with Impact Wrestling. So W. Morrissey, formerly Big Cass, of course, he made his Impact Wrestling debut last weekend at Rebellion, the Impact Rebellion pay-per-view, and he made his TV debut this past week. Now, continuing with the theme of Fightful here, Fightful Select, which is Fightful's Patreon service, be sure to check that out and subscribe subscribe. They do drop a lot of very interesting and exclusive information on that service, so be sure to check that out. They have reported that Morrissey has indeed signed a contract with Impact Wrestling and will be part of the roster, quote, for the foreseeable future. This is his first contract with a wrestling company since he was released by WWE in June of 2018. Sources claim that Morrissey has been motivated and easy to work with behind the scenes at various appearances he's made after he returned to wrestling. So that's the situation with W. Morrissey. First of all, he looked fantastic. He really does look fantastic. I think he looks to be arguably in the best shape of his career. And we did a video talking about what he really can offer Impact Wrestling, and if he's completely straight and he's put his past addictions behind him when it looks like he has, which is just fantastic. Congratulations. You love to see that. Impact Wrestling, if this all goes the right way, they've got themselves a real top quality star. There's no doubt the charisma that W. Morrissey has. There's no doubt the physical attribute he has. And to be honest, for a guy his size, pretty much 7 foot tall, you can't teach that. He's got a ton of talent in the ring. There aren't many 7 foot guys or close to 7 foot guys that can move around to the degree that W. Morrissey does. His talent in the ring is absolutely there to be seen. His charisma is there to be seen. And like I said, when the news first came out that he was going to be making his debut at Impact Rebellion, they've got themselves a major player on their hand. They really do. Now, I don't see W. Morrissey's future in Impact Wrestling being a babyface or anything like that. I think his money is in the character that he's doing now. If he stays straight and all of those addictions are put behind him, which again I think they are, and it's great to see that. There's no doubt in my mind this guy can't reach the top of Impact. There really isn't. There is no doubt in my mind, and I don't see any reason why W. Morrissey can't be an Impact World Champion. I really think that's the case because he's got everything. He's got a bit of notoriety. People know who he is. They know his face. Obviously, he's got a phenomenal look. He's larger than life. He's a bit of a throwback to the 1980s kind of giant man, but he can talk, he can work, he's got that menacing look, and this is a guy that if you book him properly, you book him as a serious, credible monster, this is a guy that can really become a world champion, and he can be a dominating world champion for 6 months, 12 months, however long you want to keep the title on him. And if they're saying, Fightful was saying that he's got a contract with Impact Wrestling for the foreseeable future, it makes total sense to be featuring him in a prime position for him to be dominating everyone. And I really wouldn't be surprised if by the end of the year we don't have someone like W. Morrissey be the Impact World Champion. It makes total sense. And you look at the roster that Impact has, I think the roster that they're building at this point is getting better to what certainly they had 12 months ago. And I think having someone like W. Morrissey at the peak of his game in great physical shape and someone that can talk on the mic, as I mentioned before, there was a reason why WWE was pushing him in 2018 and 2017. There's a reason when they decided to split up Enzo and Cass, whether that was the right thing to do or not at the time. There's a reason they went with Big Cass at the time, and there's a reason that when he came back from injury, he was feuding with Daniel Bryan straight after Daniel Bryan had returned to the ring, because there's money in this guy. There absolutely is money in this guy. If you get it right, if he gets it right, he's incredibly marketable. He can go in the ring. He can talk. He can be a believable, big, dominating heel. There's money there. The only thing that's ever held him back has been himself. So if that's all put behind him, Impact Wrestling have a big money player on their hands. And like I said, I think it's a matter of time if he's continues to perform the way he's performed so far. I know it's very early days, but if he continues to perform the way that he has so far, I think it's inevitable that he becomes a world champion in Impact. It really is just a matter of time. I see it. So great signing for Impact Wrestling, and it's great to see that it's not just a per appearance deal or anything like that, because that's really been what Impact Wrestling has been doing over the course of the last 18 months or so. They work out these deals with particularly the more higher profile people. Initially, they get in on per appearance deals and all that kind of stuff, but that's really changed. That's really changed now when it comes to W. Morrissey. They've got him on a contract and he's going to be there for a while. What the foreseeable future means in terms of a time frame, I don't know. Whether that's a year, 18 months, 2 years, I don't know. Well, obviously, if we hear anything about that, we'll address it here on the channel. But I'm very excited, and I'm a big fan of the Violent by Design stable. I was a fan of it anyway before W. Morrissey came in. I think Eric Young if you've watched the channel and you've seen any of the Impact Wrestling videos I've done when I've spoken about Eric Young, you'll know that I think he's been absolutely phenomenal over the course of the last 12 months since he returned to Impact. And him now, obviously, with the injury, it sucks, but he can be a mouthpiece. And look at the guys you've got in that stable now. You've got Morrissey, you've got Joe Doring. What a fun tag team they could be. Talk about, Towers of Doom, or Twin Towers, or whatever you want to call them, skyscrapers. There you go. They absolutely, they could be that. And you got Rhino in there, which I think is interesting for when Heath returns. You obviously got Dina in there as well. It's an exciting and unique group, and with a mouthpiece like Eric Young, that can be something really, really exciting every week on Impact Wrestling Television, and I'm very excited to see it. So great to see that Morrissey is doing so well, and very interesting to see that he's going to be sticking around for the foreseeable future. And finally, before we wrap things up, I did want to talk about this as well, because it's interesting when it comes about fans. Obviously, fans in attendance, that's been a bit of a buzzword, hasn't it, recently, considering the fans return to WWE television at WrestleMania. Obviously, as well, AEW Dynamite has fans in attendance most weeks in Daily's Place. They've had that for a while. Obviously, as well, with the UFC a couple of weeks ago in Jacksonville, they had 15,000 inside, no social distancing. I still think that's crazy. I still think that's absolutely nuts. But it looks like Impact Wrestling are ramping up plans to have fans return as well. Now, Impact Wrestling, like many other promotions and just many other sporting events, had to stop bringing live fans in due to the pandemic last year, and they haven't returned since. But the pandemic, of course, is slowing down slightly. We hope, touch wood, we're seeing a bit of light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to vaccinations and all that kind of stuff. And the company is beginning to make plans for their future. This includes getting out of the same building that they've been in Nashville for the last 12 months and touring the country a bit more. They certainly have Las Vegas in their sights to be running TV tapings in the future with fans in attendance. Now, according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Impact Wrestling is looking to bring back live touring very soon, as soon as possible, for their television shows, particularly, of course, Impact on Access TV, their Impact Plus events, and their pay-per-views. Now, while no date has been given as of yet, Las Vegas is the paramount plan for the future. This is what the Observer had to say, quote, "Once fans are back, the plan is to start taping back on the road, including regularly running shows in Las Vegas." Now, of course, we'll have to wait and see how long Impact Wrestling does indeed wait before bringing back live fans to their television show. They are currently using canned crowd noise to simulate a live atmosphere, similar to WWE and a variety of other sporting events. The company initially chose to be completely silent and have that empty crowd feeling for their tapings throughout the majority of the pandemic. That's recently changed. I think it changed at the Hard to Kill pay-per-view back in January. But it looks like real fans will be returning soon. Obviously, it depends when the states start to open up in the United States. But it's certainly going to look like Impact is definitely planning for live fans to return very, very soon, which, of course, is exciting. We've seen at this point, I mean, we noticed as soon as live fans disappeared because of the pandemic that they're the lifeblood of pro wrestling. They make a pro wrestling show far more engaging and easier to watch. And once Impact Wrestling has live fans back, in the same way that any event, whether it's pro wrestling, sport, whatever, has live fans back in attendance, it's fundamentally a better show. I think the exciting thing when it comes to Impact right now is the fans that may have regularly attended Impact Wrestling shows 12 months ago, 18 months ago, wherever, I think they're getting a better product. Now, when they return, when live fans are able to return to these Impact Wrestling shows, I think they're getting a better product. And if they go to these TV tapings, they're going to see a Kenny Omega, the Good Brothers, people like Eric Young returning. I mentioned Morrissey, Violent by Design, Josh Alexander, Trey Miguel, all of these stars that have come in, Deonna Purrazzo, and potentially some of these new recently released WWE superstars coming back over. They're going to be getting all of these very soon. That's really exciting. That's really, really exciting. And I think if you're a fan of pro wrestling, and a fan particularly, of course, of Impact Wrestling, once those tickets come up, it's going to be exciting to see what they do. And it's obviously going to make Impact Wrestling a better program, without a shadow of a doubt. And it's already a very watchable and good program. So adding the layer of having fans in attendance, that's exciting. That's very exciting. And I really look forward to that. I really do. So it's exciting that Impact are planning that. When is that going to happen? Your guess is as good as mine. I think they would probably be looking at the second half of this year. Again, it depends about the states and with the local councils and all that kind of stuff, and the local boards and health and safety protocols and all that kind of stuff about when they could actually officially start to look at putting tickets out and all that kind of stuff. But it's exciting. And Impact have run Vegas shows before. It's interesting that they want to run Vegas on a regular basis because historically Vegas can be a difficult place. It can. Now, I know obviously AEW have had great success in running shows in Vegas. Vegas and the MGM Grand and all that kind of stuff. But historically, and WCW would tell you this as well, that it's a difficult place to run Vegas because obviously there's so much going on. Obviously, the difference there, because Impact have done it in the past, the difference there is that with a smaller show in Vegas, when you're talking about 1,000 fans at a push or whatever, that's different to running the MGM Grand when we're talking tens of thousands of people there. So it certainly is an interesting one. Like I said, Impact have run Vegas several times, and if that's where they want to base themselves out of, that's great. I think that's great. It's very exciting. So the thought of having fans return safely, of course, that's the paramount in all of this, is that regardless of whatever stage we are of the pandemic, they have to return safely, and they have to return in an environment where they feel safe and they feel protected and all that kind of stuff. So it's an exciting time, though. It really is. But of course, as always, it's just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Sammy Guevara talking about the rumored creative differences he had with Impact Wrestling? Morrissey, the update on his contractual status with Impact Wrestling being on the roster for the foreseeable future, and Impact Wrestling having plans to return to the road in the near future, including running regular Las Vegas events. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about Impact Wrestling, WWE, AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube, get the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.